When he was still explaining himself, still trying to repair what I damaged, still forgiving what I didn't take responsibility for, I felt secure. His effort created comfort, his consistency created ease, and in that ease, I stopped paying attention to the cost of his patience. I didn't feel safe because I treated him well. I felt safe because he tolerated what I didn't correct. His willingness to stay, to communicate, to soften himself for the sake of peace, made me believe that nothing I did would truly push him away. I assumed his emotional availability was permanent, not something that could be withdrawn. I mistook his patience for endurance without limit. I mistook his love for immunity. I believed that because he kept returning to the conversation, he always would. And that belief slowly turned into carelessness. The fear didn't begin when he left. It began when I realized that what I lost wasn't love, it was access. Access to his reassurance, access to his calming presence, access to someone who regulated my emotions when I didn't want to regulate myself. I didn't appreciate that his forgiveness required effort, that his fixing required emotional labor, that his patience required self-sacrifice. I benefited from his stability while contributing to his exhaustion. When someone keeps fixing what you break, you stop feeling urgency to stop breaking things. And when someone keeps forgiving without consequence, you stop believing consequences exist. I wasn't abandoned suddenly. I was slowly given chances I didn't respect. And when that patience finally ended, the shock wasn't heartbreak, it was disorientation. Because the safety I felt wasn't rooted in mutual care. It was rooted in his willingness to stay regardless of how he was treated. That kind of safety is fragile, and once it's gone, it never returns the same way. What frightened me wasn't his anger. I could handle raised voices. I could handle arguments. I could handle emotional reactions because reactions meant engagement. They meant I still mattered enough to provoke a response. What scared me was his calm. The moment he stopped trying to be understood by me, something shifted. His silence wasn't punishment, it was closure, and that silence removed my leverage. I could no longer rely on emotional chaos to keep him present. Detachment doesn't demand attention. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't argue, and because of that, it's final. When he became calm without me, my importance collapsed. I wasn't the emotional center anymore. I wasn't the one he needed reassurance from, or gave reassurance to. I was no longer part of his internal process. Anger would have meant I still had access to his emotions. Detachment meant the door was closed. His peace didn't need my participation, and that's what made it unbearable. I realized that I had confused emotional reactions with connection. As long as he reacted, I believed the bond was intact. I didn't understand that reactions can disappear long before feelings do, and once they're gone, there's nothing left to negotiate. His detachment wasn't cruelty, it was self-respect. And watching someone choose themselves quietly, without drama, without explanation, forces you to confront a hard truth. You are no longer relevant to their emotional world. That realization is humbling, and it's terrifying, because you can't argue with indifference. You can't fix what no longer wants fixing. When he was present, I didn't have to look at myself honestly. His reassurance softened the consequences of my actions. His consistency buffered my accountability. But when he left, truly left, there was no one left to absorb the emotional weight of my behavior. I couldn't distract myself with his forgiveness anymore. I couldn't reset the damage with a conversation. I couldn't rely on his empathy to make me feel better about choices I didn't want to examine. Silence became unavoidable. And in that silence, I met myself without filters, without excuses, without someone else regulating my emotions for me. That's when the discomfort began. I saw how often I dismissed his concerns, how easily I assumed he'd stay, how little urgency I felt to change while he was still available. I saw how his presence allowed me to postpone growth. His absence removed my distractions, and what remained was accountability. The truth is, Reflection doesn't happen when someone is still cleaning up after you. It happens when you're left alone with the mess, and that's why silence feels so heavy, because it doesn't argue back. It doesn't reassure, it just reflects. I wasn't grieving him, I was grieving the version of myself that didn't have to face consequences. And that realization doesn't come with comfort. It comes with regret, with clarity, with the understanding that some lessons only arrive when the teacher is gone. I didn't destroy him, I refined him. Every time I overlooked his feelings, minimized his needs, or assumed his patience would stretch further, I taught him where he needed limits. I taught him what happened when his value wasn't protected, and eventually he learned. He learned that love without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. He learned that fixing everything costs something. He learned that being endlessly available doesn't make you appreciated, it makes you predictable. So he stopped negotiating his worth, and that's the consequence I face now. Not a broken man, not a bitter man, but a man who understands himself better than before, a man who no longer explains what should be obvious, a man who doesn't stay where he has to prove his value. That kind of growth doesn't reverse. His absence isn't revenge. It's alignment, and the hardest part is knowing that the version of him I miss exists, just not for me anymore. Because once someone learns their value, they don't unlearn it to make others comfortable. And that lesson stays long after the relationship ends.